He sat in on countless legendary recordings. He was Sinatra's right-hand man, played with some of the biggest names in rock and roll. He was there at CBGB's in '77, Sunset Strip in '81. He's been on tour since 1866, and he's still going strong today. His name is Jack.
The thing about being three is you don't have to hear all three of us though. I'm the one who's being delegated. I speak on behalf of all of us. This exhibition is not a history of Raqs Media Collective. To paraphrase another preface to another exhibition in another time, but in this building, as Gita would say, what we can do best of all is to replace and sometimes also displace the images and their attendant signs and meanings. So this exhibition is perhaps an argument that we are making with our own history. It could be some necessary corrections to the first draft of our history. It could also be the prehistory of our future. It could be that this exhibition, together with the book that accompanies the exhibition, I hope it will come out today, we see them both as a pair of devices that excavate and propose an unchronology, or as we are calling, as we would say, an asamayavali of Raqs itself. And this untidy timeliness is what we think of as our play, our ras and our Raqs with time. And if it is an asamayavali, it has to be by definition unretrospective. What we think the exhibition offers is a working mill of ideas that face the future, a way of reading contemporaneity, a conversation, as Professor Lochan pointed out, on how to be with time. The untimely is turning us into deep-sea divers at the edge of the abyss of doubt. It does ask us to identify rifts and tells us that there is no time that is not suitable for the first dive. Tomorrow is not better than today. And some of these thoughts on how to be contemporary, how to be worldly, how to live now, we have learned the import in conversation with none other than Okui and Razor. And it began with Documenta 11, when this century was very young, on the sidelines of the Delhi platform of Documenta that happened at the Habitat. And this conversation continues. It gives us great pleasure, Okui, that you're here with us to continue what we began so many years ago.
Monica Division Shooter chose that I should come and speak in their exhibition. But I do have an intimation of why I think it's not necessarily the most obvious thing to do, but why I believe that it's appropriate. You see, over the last few months I've been in conversation with members of the Raqs Media Collective. And as we've conversed and discussed their work, their practice, their exhibition, there was a note of alarm that they sounded, contained in a text that they sent to me. And one particular line left out and has been ringing in my head ever since. And the line talked about the present. The present in relation to what they call the insomnia of the rulers and the vigil of protesters. This line seems to me to inscribe the very difficulty of the contemporary, the untimeliness of the contemporary, in the sense that the entire epoch of modernity remains like the untimely and unfinished project, and in fact may not be possible to be finished. And so it seems to me that in the work of Raqs Media, which in my view is very much inscribed around the notion of world making, that in order to think the world as such, that their work has also been very much committed to what I would call strategies of unbuilding, of unmaking, in order to seize that potent tool which one would call the technique of remaking. And I think that the exhibition itself, in the labyrinthine, poetic, conceptual, enigmatic, literary, philosophical, and analytical positions that each work displayed in the exhibition proposes.
Putting together a show like this at the National Gallery of Modern Art is an incredible experience because it allows you to see relationships in your work that you never thought about before, this scale. So we are now beginning to see lots of resonances, lots of echoes between works, relationships, which, as we say, that these are platforms for us to think about the future. So this show is in some ways for us a laboratory for testing our ideas to see how far they can travel into the future. And that's what we're really interested in doing. So I think we're interested in thinking about shifting the terms of the question from what happens to why things happen, right? And that why question can be asked with comfort, with poise, with fun, with pleasure, as well as with all sorts of doubts. That's why we're doing this. Obviously, doing two parallel, like a big show like this in a small work was challenging, but I think we're satisfied with how we did it. It's a very contained work. It's a very quiet work in Kochi, and we've been looking at it through Instagrams that people send us, Facebook feeds that people are doing. It's wonderful to see the work being reflected in other people's eyes. When you work together for 22 years, when you meet each other every day, you obviously know each other better than you even know yourself in some ways. So Monica or Jabesh can anticipate things that I'm thinking before I think them myself. One propels the other. It's a bit like a game in which we're throwing, like playing three people playing squash in a long court. So the ball keeps hitting you.